And welcome to All Business Media TV. I'm your host, Rick Delgado, and our guest today is Katherine Myers. She's the owner at the Resiliency Counselor, and you can actually find her online. Her website, resilienccounselor.com, or give her a call directly at 937-405-5795. And Katherine, thank you again for joining us. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Rick?
I'm doing well, and thank you again for making your way to our studios and joining us for today. Now, for people that aren't familiar with you, what you do, what your company does, Resiliency Counselor, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what exactly you guys do.
I'm Katherine Myers, and I am the Assistive Technology Specialist at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. And Resiliency Counselor is a little bit of an offshoot of what I do at Wright State. It is a combination of working with people who are kind of down on their luck a little bit and kind of looking for direction. That's really what I'm looking for in helping people, and that's what I really want to do, is to help people. At Wright State, I work with students with disabilities, and I help them throughout their career at Wright State. I work with students who need to use technology, hence the Assistive Technology Specialist. But I also have a caseload, and I also work with students with severe physical disabilities on their needs for personal assistance, and that's the kind of needs for getting up in the morning, going to bed at night, showering, bathing, grooming, those kinds of needs.
Now, how long have you been at Wright State, and how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for almost 24 years. It'll be 24 years in May.
Wow, congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
And what is it looking like for the future? I know a few times we've spoken, you're like, well, I'm starting this other company now, so I don't know how long I'm going to be staying. Have you made any final decisions as of yet? I have not made any final decisions. As Resiliency Counselor takes off, I will start looking at a date. And that's what I'm really anxious for the business to take off. And because I'm doing more and more work because Wright State has had some financial difficulties. But I still love working with students and working with young people. And I love helping people. And that's what I really want to do, is to help people as I retire from Wright State. And that's why I started Resiliency Counselor, is to help people. All right. Now, where is Wright State located?
We're in Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio.
There is a major Air Force base in Dayton, and we're actually right across a major highway from the Air Force Base. And we do a lot of collaborating with them with some of our programming at Wright State.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so we're very nicely located. We're not really landlocked. We've got a lot of land for us, and it's a beautiful campus. We're a nice medium-sized university.
Now, when you first started there, was that something you've always wanted to do, or was it something that kind of, because again, I know your backstory, Katherine.
Yes, you do.
So I kind of know where this is going, but for anybody who's not familiar with you and your work, how is it that you actually ended up there, and how did this whole thing, Resiliency Counselor, evolve out of that?
This is not something I've always wanted to do. Actually, if you had told me about 40 years ago that I would be doing something like this and making a career out of it, I would have told you you were crazy. I actually had planned to be a stay-at-home mom, and that didn't work out either, but I had a son who was born perfectly normal, and when he was about 15 months old, he started limping, and within 3-4 months, he's lost all of his gross and fine motor control. And within another 6 months, he lost his speech. We do not know why. Nobody knows why. They've not been able to diagnose him at all. They actually did not expect him to live to see 2. He's going to be 40 in June.
Wow.
And he's incredibly smart. He uses a computer to talk with. When he was 12, he got his first communication device. When he was 8, my body fell apart from the stress and strain of caring for him and working. And I went through a very lengthy recovery period. It took 8 years for my body to recover. During that time period, I went back to school. I had fallen in love with his technology, and I thought at one point I wanted to design that kind of technology to help make things better for people with disabilities. But then, when I went through training on his first device, I found out that a lot of people were not getting adequate training and they were sitting in closets, and this is extremely expensive technology.
Right.
And I really thought that was kind of criminal for people to not get what they needed. And I decided I wanted to train people. So I went to my advisor at Wright State, told him what I wanted to do, and he then sent me to another person. It actually was in disability services, who was the associate director. We met, and he sent me to the College of Education and Human Services, to their rehab department, and they agreed to let me do all of my research, any volunteer work, anything that extra that I needed to do in assistive technology.
Right.
And that's the kind of technology that actually helps people use computers, environmental controls, those kinds of things, and talk. And so I said, great, I'm changing my major. And in the process of doing that, and in working with the Associate Director of Disability Services, I joined a committee that was called Computers in the Handicapped at the time. We totally changed that to more students with disabilities later, as we dropped using the word handicapped. And they opened up a computer lab for our students with disabilities. And it had all kinds of different kinds of adaptive equipment in there, and a lot of software.
Right.
And I got a grant to finish my last 2 years at Wright State, but I had to be full-time, which is going to be a stretch for me because I'd only been taking 1, maybe 2 classes at a time.
Right.
So I went to the director and I said, they're teaching a class for the first time on using that lab. And he said, yes. And I said, can I take it? And he said, well, yeah. And I explained the situation, and he said, on one condition, that you learn everything in there and you TA it the next semester. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I did.
Right.
And what we were able to prove between that semester with me being a teaching assistant in there, and then when I did my senior practicum as I graduated, was that if someone was associated with the lab for people to go to ask questions, they would use it.
Right.
If there wasn't anyone, they would not use it because they were afraid people would look down on them for looking like they didn't understand how to use a computer.
Right. So it was you know, especially probably back at that point, you know, computers are still kind of, they're not like they are today.
This was back in the mid-90s.
Right.
And so that summer, they actually restructured the department. So they had one person leaving, so they redid a couple of positions. I competed for their newly created assistive technology position and got hired. And the rest is kind of history. I've stayed, and my positions evolved. I became assistant director, associate director, and then due to family situation with my husband, I stepped down from that and went back to being just an assistive technology specialist, which at the time was the best decision ever made. And I got back to really loving what I do because I went back to my roots with the university and got to take a step backward and really became going back and totally enjoying it and getting to do more technology again. That's great. And but through helping people and looking towards retirement and what am I going to do when I leave here, I decided, you know, I really want to continue to help. And I work with a program at our church called Celebrate Recovery, where we work with individuals. It's kind of like AA, but it's not. Right. It's a Christ-centered program, but it's for anybody who wants to work on something in their lives. It's not just for people who have addictions. It's also for people who have problems with being codependent, people who have anxiety, people who have depression, and they really want to work on it, but they want to do it in small groups. They want to do it with worship. And I'm a co-leader in that program. I also do our tech support when we do our worship on Friday nights, and I also lead a step study program with it. I co-lead that. Right. And through that, I've really learned that I love helping people. And I love being able to work one-on-one with people. I like working with people in groups. And with technology, I can work with people through webinars, and I can do public speaking as well. Right. And it's something that through my years at Wright State and having to do presentations, I don't have a problem standing up in front of people. It's something that I really enjoy doing. So that's why I really wanted to do Resiliency Counselor, and where that came from.
So now, is that Is that kind of the idea behind Resiliency Counselor? It comes from, you know, the first word there, resiliency, right?
Yes, it is. And it's something, because there's been a lot of difficulties in my life with having a son with a major disability,
right,
and then dealing with everything we had to with him, and the difficulties that I had physically, and the 8 years it took for my body to recover, and then dealing with my husband's medical issues, and learning to work with people with disabilities, and also learning to work with people from all kinds of walks of life. The neat thing about working in a public university, you've got all kinds of people there. You have people with all kinds of ethnic backgrounds, people with different kinds of gender issues.
Right.
You have people with all kinds of disabilities there, because Wright State's one of the leading schools in the country for people with disabilities. We're in the top 2 or 3 in the country for working with people with physical disabilities.
Now, was that because of the work you did when you got entrenched and decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to redo what they're doing here?
No, it actually was already up there before I started, and we've stayed there for physical disabilities. And the kind of programming that we're doing for other students is really keeping us up there and helping us to stay where we are.
Right.
And because our department, we're really unique, because we don't just provide a service. We look at the students and we're like, well, how can we really help them? And how can we work in an educationally based program? We don't just want to provide a service to them. We want to help them be able to succeed when they leave Wright State.
Right.
We want to give them the skills, help them gain the skills that they need to be able to be successful on their own and working when they leave us. So we want them to learn how to self-advocate. We want them to be able to learn time management and organization while they're with us, and that's across disabilities. That's not just our physically disabled students. Right. So we have developed some special programming. We have a special program for students who are on the autistic spectrum, who are able to succeed in college academically, but have definite problems socially. So we've developed a special program for them to be able to help them be more successful in college. And we're working on looking at some of the other disabilities, and we're like, okay, what can we do to help them be more successful and help us retain them and help them be able to have the success that they should have in this environment. So we're constantly looking at that, and how can we be more effective in what we do, not just provide a service. And that's what really separates our university from other schools.
Yeah, because I think you've explained that, you know, what you guys do is you're making the college experience, because the college experience, even if you don't have a disability, can be extremely overwhelming.
It can be.
You're leaving your family, you're leaving your home, everything you know that you've grown up with, and now you're taking this step into the big world.
That's very true.
And if you've got a disability, it's even that much more intimidating now, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why we start pushing our students to do internships by their second year. We start out saying, okay, it's time for you to think about it. Maybe not this first summer, but your second summer. You need to start thinking about doing an internship, getting into an employment situation, getting hired by anybody. And this is for anyone. Getting that first career type job is not dependent on getting that diploma. It's dependent on your job experience that you gain while you're a student within your field. So we start encouraging students, and our department actually has several programs that we're able to offer to students to help them get that first job experience, and they're designed specifically for students with disabilities. And some of them are very government oriented, but they're all around the country. And they're able to interview for those kinds of things. And we've had some pretty good success with the students who participated in those programs. So we really try to encourage the students, hey, we've got these opportunities for you. Take advantage of them. And also we start working with them and try to plant those seeds in their heads. Okay, we've got a career fair going on. Go to the career fair. We've got this fair going on university-wide. And let's work on your interviewing skills. We'll do, we have a couple of staff who really work hard on that with students. So
all this seems like it was the last 24 years has been a foundation to what you're creating now with Resiliency Counselor, right?
It is. I've learned so much since I have been at Wright State about working with people, about understanding people. I am typically one of the most introverted people you will find, and people don't believe that of me anymore. But I've learned how to survive in an extroverted world, and as a result, I have really learned how to really work, take how I work with people and do it differently. The way everybody in our department works is different. Right. I'm the one who has the soft touch, okay, in some respects. I can give the harder touch when I need to, but most of the times the reason why my students really like coming into my office is they feel better when they leave. Right. Because I can sit there and I have a good way of relating to them, and I can do it in a very easygoing manner. I don't get into their face very often. I can, but I don't do that. I reserve that for when I absolutely have to. Right. Okay. And I sit there and I just talk to them about, okay, what's going on, and then we just talk, and I'm like, okay, how did we get here? What's holding you back? And we just work through the situation. And sometimes I just sit there and I'm like, okay, why are you so down on yourself right now? Right. And we'll go through it, and I'm like, okay, do you realize the good things you have going on? And they're like, well, I guess I do. And I said, well, let's talk about those. And by the time they leave, they're like, okay, I feel so much better. Right. Because those are tough to see when it's happening to you. And so when it's nice to have that, you know, that outside person kind of with a fresh set of eyes, so to speak, being able to say, look, you may not even notice that this, and this is going well for you. You exactly. Need to, you need to build on that. And we've got a tough world situation these days, and young people have a hard time dealing with that. Some of our students really take that personally, and they internalize what's going on in the world. When the election was going on, we had some people who really took some of the things that were said in the media very personally, and it was really rough for them, and it took a lot of work to have them understand we only worry about the things we can control. Right. There's so much we can't control. So, okay, can we control this situation? No. Okay, what can we control? Right. We can control how we react. Okay, that we can control. We can control how we work on our classes. We can control how we work in our dorm rooms and our relationships on campus. Those we can control. Right. But these things that are going on in the world, we can't control. So I know we're scared, and I know we worry about them. But what's most important to worry about and be concerned about is what's going on right here, right now, that we can control. Right. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, okay, so this is where we focus our energies, not with the big picture over here that we have no control over. And they're like, okay, I can buy that. And I'm like, okay. Right. So what are we going to focus on? The stuff I can control. I'm like, okay, that's right. Right. Because we have no control over the rest. Oh, yeah. You know, you can walk out of your house and you can't control how the person in the car next to you is driving. You can't control. Exactly. It's almost like, it's funny too, because while I'm hearing you say that, you know, about how you're talking to that person, and it's probably coming from a specific conversation that you've had, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I had the exact same conversation last weekend. It was a group of 11-year-olds. That's right. And it was for a basketball game because I'm one of the coaches. But, you know, they were complaining, oh, this kid was doing this, and the ref didn't call this, and blah. It's like, guys, you can't control any of that stuff. That's right. You know, and it's funny that you mention that, because it's stuff that, you know, maybe should be starting, you know, as a society, maybe we should be teaching our kids that, you know what, there are things you cannot control, but you can control, like you said, you can control what you do, how you react. The only things you can control are how you know, to these kids, I was telling them, it's how you play the game. It's how you pass the ball. It's how you shoot, how you score. That's the only thing you can control. Don't worry about the other team. Don't worry about the other coaches, the refs, nothing. You can't control them. And I was reading in a book that I'm reading right now how much the anxiety in our society has increased, along with the depression that has increased in our society. And it's increased on college campuses considerably. And I'm like, okay, why?
Right.
We've raised a generation now that has a very difficult time coping. They don't understand the good things that happen around them, because what they hear all of the time in our media, what they're surrounded with is so much negativity that they don't know how to cope.
Right.
Okay? They're surrounded with all of this bad news, okay? They're surrounded with a lot of pressure to succeed, okay? And pressure to do well. Pressure to, I have to be able to do this, okay? That their anxiety just goes through the roof, okay? And I'm like, okay, what can I do to help?
Right.
And then we have adults that are feeling the same pressures because they want to help their kids, okay? We have parents who are also having problems with anxiety, depression, worry, and all of this because they're worried about their kids. And they're also worried about the world situation, and they're worried about all of these things. And what we have is this world where you're hearing so much negativity, we don't focus on the positive things and the good things that are going on in our society. And there is a lot of it going on. We just don't hear about it very often.
Well, you know what, Katherine? I've been in media long enough. If it bleeds, it leads.
Exactly.
That's the way they play it.
That's exactly right.
Let's find the bad news because that's what people love to talk about.
And it is. It is what people love to talk about. But what would things be like if we started turning it around and we started hearing more and more of the good things and less of the bad? Do you realize what impact that would have on our society? And how more positive people would be, and how the anxiety level and the depression level would come down.
Yep.
And that's one thing I'm noticing at Wright State. We have our own media at Wright State. We have our marketing department and our communications department. They are now sending out daily the good things that are going on at the university.
Right.
And I know one of the things they're trying to do is help with the morale at the university because of our financial situation, and we've taken quite a few hits in the media because of the way things started there. But they're really trying to turn it around, and I really like reading about it because it's showing all the good things our students are doing, and some of the good things that our staff and faculty are doing, because they're all doing great things. And I wish, and some of these things are coming from our local media, and they're just replicating those stories. And I'm like, you know, I wish that our media, our local media, would really hone in on these stories to really show everybody that, hey, there are good things happening, because that would ease all this stress that's going on in our society.
Right.
And it would help make people feel so much better if people could focus on these good things. And that's one of the things that I want people to be able to do, is look at, okay, you've got this going on. What can you do that's going to be positive in your life?
Right.
What kinds of things can you do to help you look at and see some good things that you can do that will actually make you feel better, that will help you to feel better?
Right.
That make you, you know, have you realize that you can contribute positively and not feel like, okay, I'm just existing, okay? You know, what are the things that are going on around you that maybe you can have a positive impact on and help you do some change too? Right.
Now, is that some of the stuff that you go into with people when you start working with them?
I do. This is something, and I'm doing this with one of my students right now. Is having him look at, okay, I'm like, okay, what can you do to have a positive impact around here?
Right.
So he's actually exploring some of the groups on campus to see what he can fit into for volunteering and actually make a difference.
Right.
Because we have, one of the requirements of most of our campus clubs is that they do community service. That we have a major community focus at Wright State for service learning.
Right.
And to teach students that we have to give back to our community. So I have him looking at and exploring several groups that I think he might have an interest or be able to find a place in them to be able to serve. So we started out with a few for him to explore and see what he can find.
That's great. And again, you know, it all goes back to that foundation. It seems that you've built over the past, say, 24 years, coming up to 24 years.
Yes.
At Wright State, which is now launching you forward into the next phase of Katherine Myers, which is Resiliency Counselor. Again,
Yes.
She's our guest today, Katherine Myers. She's the owner of Resiliency Counselor. You can find her website online at resilienccounselor.com, or you can reach out to her directly at 937-405-5795. And it's more about, I guess, like you said, trying to help them or help people that you come in contact with kind of figure things out and move themselves forward, because a lot of times, you know, whether it be the news media or something happens in their life, they kind of get beat up a little bit and a little stuck. And, you know, some people might say, well, is she just a life coach, or what does she do, and what's the difference? So maybe you can explain that for us here, Katherine. You know, there are people that are life coaches, which I'm sure they do great work.
Yes.
But then there's you, Resiliency Counselor. So tell me a little bit about the difference.
It's not coaching, and it's not counseling, okay? It's kind of in between the two. Coaches are working with people who are established in their businesses,
right,
and want to help refine themselves more in what they're doing. And that's life coaches and business coaches, okay? People who are doing major counseling and therapy are working with people with major mental health problems, okay? So I'm kind of in the middle, where I'm working with people who are kind of down and out on their luck. They need direction, and they don't know where to go. They don't know what kind of direction they need. And maybe they've had some hard knocks. They've been struggling a little bit with their life,
right,
or maybe even a lot with their life, or they've had a lot of those life difficulties, and they're struggling with, okay, I need to do something, but I don't know what.
Right.
Okay, and I want to be able to show people, hey, there is life out there, and you can be successful in life. Look at me, I have been.
Right.
Okay, I've been able to turn the whole thing around. I did it with a lot of help and a lot of prayer, and all, but it can happen. You don't have to stay down and out. You don't have to stay there. You can pick yourself up. You can have the same kind of love. You can experience love. You can experience peace. You can experience all of this, and you can experience success in your life.
Right.
There are ways to do that, and you can also experience that you count in this society, that you aren't just a nobody.
Right.
Okay, because nobody is that.
Right.
None of us are. We all count. We all have our place. And that's what I want people to understand, is that they do. They all matter. Right. And that's what I want people to understand, and that's what I want to show people. And that's where I differ. I'm not a life coach. I'm not a business coach. I'm not working with people who are highly successful at what they do already, right, and they just want some help with it, or they want to take it to another level. And I'm not working with people with really severe mental health problems and are looking for a long-term therapist. Right. I'm looking for people who really want to get out of the dumps, okay, and really find the direction that they need in their life. Right.
Maybe gain some clarity.
Gain some clarity. I have a student that I was working with off and on since he's came to our office over a year ago and got registered with us, and he actually shut down last semester. He reached out to his therapist finally when he realized, I can't do this anymore. Right. And then his therapist had him come to me, and I told him what he needed to do to get things situated for last semester, where he actually got a clean slate for his classes, and he did not fail them. We were able to get them kind of wiped off the books. It shows he took them, but he withdrew from them. And then he and I are working this semester, and my goal in working with him, I know where he will shut down again, what will happen. Right. And I know what his pattern is where he will shut down. He's close to graduating, and he knows where that is too. My goal is to keep an eye on him and work with him academically to make sure that doesn't happen. Right. And we talked about this the other day, that so long as he is working on his assignments ahead of time, he's maintaining his motivation and turning things in on time, he'll be fine. I looked at him and I said, the day you start getting behind on things is when you're headed for shutting down. He said, I know. Right. And I said, that's what we are trying to avoid.
Now, with someone in his case, how far is he away from graduating?
He will graduate fall 2018.
Okay, so that's coming up pretty quick.
It's coming up very quick.
So is that something where maybe he's starting to have some anxiety regarding, you know, I'm going to be leaving now?
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times people fall in love in college. They love to stay in college.
Absolutely.
It's not the real world still.
That's right.
And so do you think he's kind of feeling that dread of, uh-oh, I'm going to be, it's almost like leaving the house for the first time to come to college. Now I'm going to be leaving the college to go out into the real world. It's a whole new ball game once again.
I think that was part of it, but his actual shutdown started when he failed a class in the spring. He did not do well, and it's the first time he's ever had that happen to him in his life.
Right.
So because of that, that really got him down on himself. And then he realized that he was spiraling, and he finally accepted it. He was coming to the campus every day. He wasn't going to his classes. Right. He was sitting in his car eating and watching YouTube videos. And finally his parents started watching him, started realizing he wasn't keeping his room picked up. Right. And he finally realized what was going on and called his therapist. And fortunately that all happened. I hadn't seen much of him, so I thought things were going okay. Right. But I was starting to see signs as well based on a couple of emails I had seen, and was starting to get a little bit concerned. But now with working with him now, I'm seeing a whole different person, which is really nice to see. But he needed the therapist, but he also needs to be meeting with me. Right. It's taking both of us working somewhat, not really together, but it's taking that two people to get him through it right now. And I think he'll be successful when he leaves us. Right,
because you're dealing with, you know, the therapist is handling the more extreme part of it.
He's handling the extreme part. Right. I'm handling what he needs academically, but also that, okay, let's keep an eye on things. Let's keep a positive base to things. Right. And let's keep that encouragement going that you're doing what you need to do, because he needs that piece, which is also a piece of what I want to do with people. People don't get the encouragement that they need to keep going anymore. Right. There's so many people that feel beat up, and they feel like they don't get, nobody appreciates what that they do. And we need that encouragement, which is the other piece of what I want to do, is encourage people and let them know how much they appreciate it, and let them know that they are doing good work with what they do. Right.
Now in this person's, this guy's particular case, also, is it the fact that, because like you said, he failed his first class, right? Was that his first taste of, say, things not going his way? All of a sudden, now here's failure. This is what failure feels like. Right. And like you said, it started that spiraling effect. Yeah. Because he didn't know how to deal with the failure. Right.
He had always been extremely good with his classes. He'd always done extremely well. And for the first time in his life, he didn't. He absolutely did not. Right. And that seems to harken back to something else you were talking about a little earlier as well, with, you know, the way you know, things are today, with everybody feeling like everything in the world affects them, when in reality it really doesn't. Right. They're letting it affect them. We let it affect us, and we don't have to. Right. We really don't have to let everything that goes on around us and everything that happens affect us and have a huge effect on us. Right. We really don't have to do that. And that's one of the things I want to have the people I work with understand, that, because my envisionment is that the people I work with will kind of feel that way. Right. Is that, you know, everybody's down on me, nobody appreciates me, you know, I can't do anything right, when that's not true. You know, that is very far from the truth. Right. We all do things that are great. We all do things that are right. Not everything is wrong. Right. And that's so true, that we think that it's wrong, but that's not true. we all do great things. We just have to figure out where they are,
right,
and have somebody help us find those great things that we do.
Yeah, and sometimes they just need to be made aware of it, because
exactly,
you don't see it. You're living your life and you don't realize, hey, this was actually a great thing and it affected this person in a positive way, but you never see that.
Very definitely.
Now let me ask you this. Where does Katherine Myers' resiliency come from? Because it seems like, you know, I know your backstory. You know, the 8 years where you know, medically you were a hot mess there for a
Yes,
bit.
I was.
You know, the cards that were dealt to you with your child, were there things prior to that that actually prepared you, that you didn't realize at the time they were help preparing you for what was laying ahead?
I have a very strong faith.
Okay.
And what I did not know was when we were going through things with Rob's disability, what God was preparing me for. And I did not know that when I was dealing with all the difficulties with my own health and going through being in a wheelchair myself,
right,
and I was in there more than once, what he was preparing me for there. And that he was preparing for me to be empathetic of other people. Sympathy and empathy are two totally different words. And I really learned how to be able to empathize with other people because I have been there. I've been in a wheelchair. I have had to fight to get out of it. I have been dependent on other people to get me where I needed to go.
Right.
I hated every moment of it. God made me a very strong, stubborn person, which is where my son gets it from, because he's incredibly stubborn, and the two of us butt heads sometimes. And he also knows who's going to win, and it's not him when he's up against me. When he's up against life, he wins.
Right.
But God made me very strong, and as far as my will goes, and I didn't realize what all he was preparing me for. I didn't realize he was preparing me to work with people with disabilities. I would have never dreamt that.
Right.
When I was a teenager, I wanted to be either a school teacher or a nurse. I gave that dream up when I met my husband. I decided, no, I don't need to be a nurse. I can just forget about it. What I didn't know was that I was going to become a nurse anyway as a mother, because I had to do nursing type things with my son. I had to do things with him, and I remember this conversation with one of his doctors over the phone. I'd had to call him at night, and I said, I am not a nurse. And he said, but you are his nurse.
Right.
I said, then give me my degree. And I said, find a place that will give me an honorary degree so that I have the piece of paper. And he said, well, they should do that for you, but you know, you are his nurse.
Right.
And I was like, well, you're right. And but I didn't know what he was preparing me for and what I would need to understand when I got my job at Wright State.
Right.
And I knew about the assistive technology part. I didn't know I was going to be running the personal assistance program too, and what I would need to understand with our students on that one too. And be able to understand as I hired personal assistants and listened to them complain and ask strange questions in the middle of the morning going, I have the flu and you're asking me this? You've got to be kidding me. And the things that they would come up with and be able to direct them. I had no idea the parents I would encounter.
Right.
And all, but he gave me the knowledge through this experience to be able to work with all of them. And I know now that what he is wanting me to do is to take that further and to be able to help people beyond the university.
Right.
And to take that knowledge that I have gained, that empathy that I have, and that resilient spirit that I have, to show other people that they can be resilient also.
Right. So would it be fair to say, for at least you, Katherine, that your faith is the foundation of your resiliency? Absolutely. Okay. Very definitely it is. And is that something that you grew up with? Yes, I did. Yeah. I was very fortunate. My parents were a very strong Christian family. My dad was probably one of the most godly people I have ever met in my life. He was an Air Force colonel.
He was career Air Force. He was in for 28.5 years.
And kind of a tough guy.
He's a, well, my dad.
Well, you say colonel, and everybody thinks, ooh, okay, that's up there.
He was up
no
there.
Nonsense.
He was no nonsense.
Right.
But my dad was a quiet person, and we all had a lot of respect for him. And when my dad spoke, because he was so quiet, we listened.
Right.
But he also was an incredible storyteller. We never knew when he was telling the truth and when he was not. We'd even look at my mother and go, is that true or not? And she would go, yeah, that's true. And his classic line to us was, after we would ask him a question that pertained to school, and he would give us this elaborate story, and we would go, is that really true or not? And he said, if you don't believe me, look it up in the encyclopedia.
Right.
And after we would write about it for school and then fail our papers because we listened to him, we quit asking him. And one time I challenged him on it and looked it up in the encyclopedia, and he was right. But my dad really was a man of faith, and we knew it. And he set an incredible example for us. And without that foundation, it would have been extremely hard for me to draw on my faith when I needed to, because I knew what it was, and I knew and watched my dad do the same thing. He never had the same kind of hardships and difficulties that we had. And I didn't realize how everything had affected him until my parents moved out of their last house into assisted living. And we were helping to go through everything, and I was talking to him before they closed up their house. And he looked at me and he said, I have cried tears over you. And I looked at him and I said, I had no idea. And he said, oh, you have, I didn't want you to, because I had to be the strong dad for you.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that had a huge impression on me, but I also knew that he relied on his faith to get through all that I was going through.
Right.
So that example that he set for me and my family really carried through for me. And that helped to make me the person that I am.
Right.
And helped me get through everything, and gave me what I needed to rely on to get through everything.
Right. Now when it comes to faith, because I know you do a program at the church, you said,
yes,
right?
I do.
You're one of the leaders there. Is that something that is, that's not something you require, right? When you're working with somebody now?
No, I do not.
It doesn't even come into it unless that maybe they bring it up?
If they bring it up, or I see a real need for it, I will bring it up. But that is not required at all. I will work with anyone. It doesn't matter to me what background. That's one thing that Wright State has taught me. There are people of all kinds of backgrounds that all need help of some kind. And if we don't think we need help, we're lying to ourselves. We all need help of some kind. And I don't require that at all. But if they bring it up, that would be great. If they don't, but if I really see a need to bring it up, and if they reject it, that's fine. I'm not going to cram it down anyone's throat whatsoever. I'm not that kind of person. I'm very quiet about my faith, but it's very important to me too.
Right.
Like I said, it's made me who I am, but it is not something that I'm going to push.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's been tested over the years, hasn't it?
Oh, it has been tested in many big ways, very big ways over the years. There have been times when I have wondered where God was, and we all do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with getting angry with God either.
Right.
We can do that. We can shake our fist at him, and he's not going to get angry with us. He's never going to turn our back on us either. And that's the really neat thing about it, is that we turn ourselves over to him, and he's never going to leave our sides.
Right.
And that's the thing that I've always held on to.
Well, that's great, because that again, helps you with your foundation, for the resiliency that you've had, that you've had to deal with, your personal challenges, your child as well, your husband, what he went through as well, and now, as you embark on this next chapter.
Absolutely.
That's a great foundation to be able to stand on and be like, all right, I'm able to move forward now, right?
And the thing of it is, I know that this is what he wants me to do.
Right.
And I know this is where he is leading me. And like I said, I can work with anyone. There are people of all kinds of faiths and backgrounds, and it doesn't matter to me whatsoever. I can work with anyone. And I do work with people of all kinds of backgrounds now.
Yeah,
and I can
at Wright
I can
State.
take it. Yeah, and I can take it anywhere.
Right. And now, in terms of doing that kind of work, when you're working with people that, you know, hey, it's this person from this part of the country, or they have this kind of challenge. Is it one of, you know, when you're starting to work with them for the first time, is it something you're trying to establish that trust? Because, you know, that's probably got to be a big important part of it, right? Oh,
trust is always important. And absolutely we have to establish trust. The first time that I talk with anyone is going to be absolutely free, so that we can see if we can even work together.
Right.
And then we go from there. But it can be done through Skype, it can be done through a phone call. We can work that out. And you know, logistically we can deal with it. I don't have to be in the same part of the country.
Right.
If we want to do something with more people, we can do it through webinars. We can come up with a common topic. And I can also do public speaking. I don't have to stay in Dayton either.
Right.
I can be mobile.
Now, we were talking a little bit about public speaking before we came on, and it's funny because you're kind of the same way I am. You know, you don't like everything too scripted. You know, but you know, as long as you got a good framework and some ideas of what you're doing, you can kind of prattle on, right?
Definitely. I need to know what they want, and if I can come up with a framework for it, it's not a problem whatsoever. I can do it.
Now, do you do any speaking with the church group?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. I've actually given my testimony with it. My son gave his just a couple of weeks ago using his computer device.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was incredible to get to listen to him and listen to him share what he's gone through,
right,
and some of the difficulties he's had and how he has dealt with it. That was really cool, and I was a part of his.
Right.
And so yes, I've done some at our church.
Now with your son doing his, was it surprising to you to hear some of what he ended up, you know, sharing with everyone? Because, you know, a lot of times we have things that we've gone through, but we don't really talk about. And then all of a sudden, you know, say your son, for instance, puts that out there, you're probably like, wow, I had no idea.
Well, I had to help him because I had to program his device for him to make it easier on him and to keep it 3 hours for him to do. And when he and I were talking about it, and I was helping him come up with exactly how to present it, I was really surprised with a few things on it as to how long he had been able to hear God and listen to Him. And it's so interesting because God always wants us to hear Him,
right,
but most of us don't take the time to listen. Rob's got time on his hands because of his disability.
Right.
And he's been hearing Him since he was quite young. And when I found that out, I was like, whoa, no wonder you're smiling all the time.
Right.
And he's had him by his side since he was very little, and he had him by his side the whole time while I was dealing with my disability. And when he was in foster care and all, and that's how he got through all of that.
Right.
And getting to hear all of that from him, really was a surprise for me. I didn't know. I knew he had a close relationship, but I didn't know how close it was.
Right.
And how early it had started, which was really interesting to find out.
Yeah, and I bet throughout the 8 years of your illness, you know, that had to be a part. You know, when you hear it back, you're like, wow, I had no idea that this was, you know, because again, you're taking care of yourself. You're trying to get back so you can take care of him.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it must have been kind of tugged at you a little bit.
It did.
You know?
It did. And that whole 8 years was extremely difficult because he wasn't at home.
Right.
And when we initially placed him in an institution first, that was the hardest thing I could have ever done. Yet he was a real trooper. He kept smiling at us every time. They wanted us to stay for the weekend up there because he was 3 hours away, and to help him adjust. Every time we left, he just looked at us and he smiled like, it's okay, guys. It's all right. I've got this. And I was like, well, I have the most tremendous son in the world. And I cried buckets over it because it was the hardest thing I've ever done to leave him in the hands of someone else like that. And then when he went with the foster family, he was closer to us. But it was still incredibly hard that they were giving him something I couldn't give him at that time. We remained his guardians, and we had control over everything, but they were his caretakers. They had the day-to-day stuff, and I didn't get to see him every single day, and that was really a killer for me.
Right.
And because he and I were so incredibly close. But it was what had to be done at the time, because having him at home was actually killing me at the time. So it was what had to be done. And he was so good through the whole thing. He was such a trooper through the whole thing, but it was so great when we were able to bring him back home.
Yeah, that must have been quite a day.
It was.
And I remember you telling the story about how having to rush because now the house wasn't big enough. You had to get a new house.
We did.
You know,
it was quite a time for us, because we were looking for houses. He had major surgery and was supposed to be in for 10 days. He was in for 6 weeks.
Right.
We were hiring assistants for him while he was in the hospital. We were interviewing in his hospital room. And I went and looked at this house, my husband did, and we actually didn't cement it till after he was home. But I mean, our house was so small, you had to go outside to change your mind or turn around practically, because we were so cramped in it.
Right.
And our Sunday school class actually moved us, and it was during a blizzard that we moved. It was so bad. But they got us moved. They said, so long as there's no ice, we'll be able to move you. And we did. We got moved, and also it was amazing.
Talk about resilience, huh?
Yeah, I know it. I know. But we've had people at the right time in our lives when we really needed them. But then there have been other times when we're like, okay, where is everybody?
Right.
But yeah, we've gotten through it, and I've come out stronger each time.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what you're offering to now share with people through Resiliency Counselor, correct?
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I want people to see, is that with every hardship we have, every time you deal with it and you come out of it, you come out stronger than you were before.
Right.
We are never going to not have difficulties. We always will have something that's coming at us. But each time we deal with it, we deal with things better, because we learn from each experience that we have. We learn more skills, we learn things smarter, and each time we come out of it, we come out better than we were before.
Right.
And we're more resilient than we were before. And we end up coming through on top of everything. And we can do that.
Right. It's like overcoming that molehill that you first thought was a mountain, right?
That's right. And it actually ended up being a molehill.
Right. And now you're able to just step on it.
That's right. That's right.
And squish it into the ground and keep on moving.
And that freight train that you thought that was coming through that tunnel in that mountain really was not a freight train after all.
Right. It was just a kid with a flashlight.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And you know, it goes back to the old saying, you know, what doesn't kill us ends up making us stronger.
And that's true. And that is so true. Things don't have to kill us.
Right.
They do make us stronger. And they make us so much stronger, and we don't realize that that's exactly what's happening.
Right.
Is they do make us stronger, and we are such better people for it. We really are. And that's really the key to all of this, is that they don't kill us, they make us stronger, and we're such better people as a result of it, and we can share so much to other people and then turn around and help others ourselves.
Right, yeah. When you see people that have gone through something, you know, one time, something new, and they keep just bouncing back and bouncing back, that's essentially what you're talking about, that resiliency, that you know, that power to, you know, kind of overcome what seemed like it was just gonna wipe you out, but it doesn't.
And we all have it in us to do that.
Right.
Nobody's without that. We all have the ability to do that. At least I believe that.
But it's the confidence that sometimes gets in the way.
It is. It is. We all struggle too with confidence, and you know, there are a lot of people with self-esteem issues,
right.
and that's a result of our society, that we have that problem and a confidence issue. But we do all have it in us to be able to overcome all of this. We don't have to become we don't have to succumb to it.
Right.
we can overcome it.
Yeah.
And that's what I want people to understand.
Yeah, and again, if Katherine has kind of touched you with some of her stories, or just seems to make sense in terms of, okay, you know what, she's right. There are things I guess I can overcome. I'm still here, as a matter of fact. You know what I mean? Reach out to Katherine directly. Her name is Katherine Myers. She's the owner of the Resiliency Counselor. You can find her online. ResiliencyCounselor.com is the website, or give her a call directly at 937-405-5795 and start your path down the Resiliency Counselor way with our guest, Katherine Myers. Katherine, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.